This is Byron and Nicole White, and you are tuned into episode 188 of The Real Word.
Word is up.
Yes, it is. All right, we've never done it. We haven't done this topic, the eviction topic. So we're going to get into that. I'm very sure. Very sure we haven't done it.
You have the cliff notes. I don't have the cliff notes.
We've kind of skirted around it, so we're going to get into that in Racket number 1. We're going to get into condo boards in Racket number 2, how they can help and or hurt your business. And then our Marketeer is going all the way back to the greatest decade in American history.
Wow.
The 1990s.
Really?
Oh,
You're
by
stamping
far.
it?
Yeah.
You're stamping it.
The 90s were by far the best decade in American history. So we'll tell you what that means.
Maybe the greatest decade that you've been alive.
I just rank it as the best. I mean, everything great was happening, and it was right before all the...
Like the MC Hammer pants,
the
hip-hop.
I mean, I wouldn't put that in the top, 10 of why it's
I don't know. I wore those envelope pants.
Oh, we got to get some pictures. Can we recall those photos?
That. I don't know. If you could hit up Nance. She sees everything.
Yeah. Well, she hits me up on the DM all the time, so maybe I will ask Nance. All right. Let's get into Racket number 1. The looming eviction crisis is overblown. This is an Inman article which we'll link up, and is this considered an opinion piece? Yes, it is. It's an opinion piece.
It's lengthy too. I mean, this took reading.
This does take reading. It is an article on Inman.com, so it certainly would take some reading, and of course we will link it up. So this is an opinion piece by Andrew Sirios, and let's get into what some of his thoughts are. Although there's a lot of chatter about an eviction tsunami or an eviction apocalypse, whenever the final federal moratorium ends, the data does not support that fear. Here's a deeper dive. Let's get into it. And right before we get into it, you do hear this a lot, mostly from people who are wannabe real estate investors. Okay, and this is where I'm going with this. You don't have a lot of the sophisticated real estate investors saying, "Oh, I'm going to wait for this, eviction tsunami to open up so I can score deals." It's the people who have never bought a deal in their life, and they're waiting or hoping, crossing their fingers to steal something. What do I mean by that? I mean, we've talked about BlackRock buying up $6 billion worth of single-family homes as investment properties to rent because they know that rents are soaring. There's actually a New York Times article going all the way back to March of this year talking about a $60 billion housing grab by Wall Street. Hundreds of thousands of single-family homes are now in the hands of giant companies, squeezing renters for revenue and putting the American dream even further out of reach because they believe in these investments and they're buying right now. They're not waiting for an eviction crisis. They're buying now, top of the market, and oftentimes, and we've talked about this on the show a whole bunch, they're buying above market value. So it's those onesies and twosies that are like, oh, I'm just going to wait. When you wait and you never get in, you're going to miss the market. There's no such thing as timing the market. What happened in 2008 is not what is necessarily happening now. It's actually nothing even similar to what's happening now because we know for certain we're not going through a mortgage crisis. So
right?
Yeah. So it's very different. But let's jump back into some of Andrew's thoughts. So he's pointing towards questionable surveys. Okay, so it's been going on since the pandemic. Obviously, there's been this eviction ban. You've heard that in the headlines, and you hear a lot of people basically being asked if on these surveys if they are at risk of losing their house, right? So he's pointing towards surveys that are, I don't know. Here's one. June 2020, an Aspen Institute said between 19 and 23 million people are at risk of eviction. This July, Aspen Institute, same survey, said 15 million people at risk of eviction. But the big question is, what does at risk of eviction mean? Now, 15 million people being evicted, that would be a lot. That would be significant. That would be a concern because we know that we're only about, between 3 to 5 million homes short in this country of supply. If all of a sudden, and 15 million people being evicted doesn't mean 15 million homes hit the market. But if 15 million people were evicted overnight, there would be some changes in the market. But obviously, being at risk and evicted are two different things. But he's arguing that 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. So you could argue that 50% of Americans are at risk of being evicted just based off of the fact that they're living paycheck to paycheck. But the facts are the majority of those people are getting up and going to work every single day. The National Multifamily Housing Council does a monthly survey of apartment owners covering just shy of 12 million units and found that 95.6% of their tenants paid rent in June of 2021. This is down slightly from 95.9, so 0.3% difference for June of 2020. But that's very high, and obviously, it's 12 million units, so you're talking, I don't know, what would 4% of 12 million be, Nicole?
Not. You want me to do the math?
It wouldn't be millions of people at risk of being evicted.
Not.
So.
Nope.
There you go with kind of the surveys.
What you do. That's when you throw me the ball. That's when you're like, and it's your turn to talk. Do math in your head.
Do you have the calculator? You are the calculator.
Jesus Christ.
You've got the calculator out, don't you?
That was like a hard ball. That wasn't even a, hey, why don't you join the conversation?
What do you think
is 4%? Let's make her look like a bigger ass.
All right,
let's throw her the math.
What are your thoughts on him pointing out the surveys? What would you think about the surveys?
Well, I mean, I think obviously it's all headlines. I mean, and I think that it is important that he is bringing that to everybody's attention, that it is a headline grabber. It's interesting, though, too, because, again, you're talking about June of 2020. In my mind, that's still sort of like the beginning. So, I appreciate the fact that he's bringing sort of the counter side to it. Obviously, as we continue to sort of jump through each of these topics here in this article, you'll really start to understand that, again, people are paying. And again, he even sort of goes a little bit deeper into, I'm a landlord. I would much rather sort of figure it out with my tenant than kick them out, so.
And that's again, another option he talks about.
Yeah. I mean, we can keep moving through, but I'm still reeling over the math problem.
Oh, well, I can figure it out real quick for you. I do have a calculator.
No, I feel great about it. I mean, it's over now.
12 million times 0.04, which would be 4%. That's 480,000 units that weren't paying their rent, but they could be vacant too. So you've got that too. And that's actually a typical. You take a big multifamily complex. That's like your typical vacancy rate, like 4% or whatever. So there you go. Not a big problem. Now, it doesn't get into this in this article, but there are other sources that you can look up that talk about a lot of these evictions that are filed right now and that are waiting for a ban in many cases to be lifted so that they can go ahead and evict are well below, are in units or in homes that are well below the median price point right now in this country, which is about $350,000 or more, depending on the area. Okay, so it's not like and what we've seen get really bought up. I mean, think about all the second homes that were bought in the last 18 months. Think about all these higher price homes. We saw prices accelerate. Median price points $350,000. It's not like there's a lot of those homes that are waiting to evict somebody. And so that being said, if it is below median price points, that inventory, if it did hit the market, would get scooped up in a heartbeat, whether it's BlackRock, whether it's Zillow, or whether it's that local investor who's waiting for a deal. Those deals would immediately, or the first-time home buyer, they would immediately sell if they hit the market. Yeah. Also, part of this, it's not in this article either, and then we'll get back into this article here. But also National Association of Realtors, Nicole, you saw that they sued to have this eviction ban lifted to protect homeowners, to protect real estate investors, landlords. I don't think they made it too far, but they are, the courts struck them down. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
You did not see that. Okay, so our National Association of Realtors did that. Now they're not having much luck with that in the courts, and obviously there's a lot of states that have just said we're not lifting this at all. So anytime soon. So there you go. It's kind of a tough battle. All right, going back into this, eviction filings are not up. So that's an interesting stat, which would contradict, to your point, Nicole, the headlines that, hey, there's going to be this eviction crisis. The eviction labs at Princeton University, I'd love to go to that lab. That sounds like a lab I would like. The eviction labs?
The eviction labs?
The eviction labs.
Well, click on it. Click on it. It hyperlinks you someplace else.
Yeah, it's a evictionlab.org. In a typical year, landlords file 3.7 million eviction cases. So they've got a whole bunch of data on, we should really be looking at this. Everybody,
well, Connecticut's in here.
Evictionlab.org. Everybody should be looking at this. This is interesting. Okay. Maybe we'll go back to that. So anyways.
It's tracking 6 states, yeah.
Oh, just 6 states?
Right now it is tracking data in 6 states. Yep.
Okay, so at Princeton University, it's a pro-tenant department that monitors evictions across the country. So like I just talked about National Association of Realtors suing to lift the eviction ban. They would be pro-homeowner, the people that actually own the real estate, that took the risk to make the investment. The eviction labs at Princeton University is pro-tenant. Okay, so there you go. Monitors evictions across the country. Right now, it is tracking, like you said, 6 states: Connecticut, Delaware, Indiana, Minnesota, Missouri, and New Mexico. Interesting enough that they're not doing Jersey, even though they're in Jersey. Kind of a weird mix there, but I guess a good mix.
Definitely a weird mix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Looking at the data from those 6 states, there's no evidence of any sort of major uptick in filing. So this is interesting because Minnesota and Connecticut have statewide eviction moratoriums that have stayed in place alongside the federal ban the entire time. So you would think that in those 2 states, you'd have a potential for eviction filings to rise, waiting for the ban to be lifted. If people in those 2 states were like squatting, like, I'm not just going to pay. I can just,
right.
I'm collecting unemployment, but you know what? I've got the right not to pay you, so I'm not going to pay you. That type of scenario, which there are a lot of landlords that are saying that that's what's happening to them. So, but the data is not showing that in those 2 particular states or this grouping of 6 states. That's interesting. You don't seem interested by this topic at all, Nicole. You seem very uninterested in the eviction ban crisis.
Well, because I'm interested. It's again, like I said from the very beginning, this is a really long article. It goes into a lot of different things. Again,
you don't like long articles. You're going to love the Marketeer. You picked it out.
No. It's very helpful, and I think that it's a great conversation to be having. I do agree with everything that you're saying, because again, if people are waiting for deals, and to be quite honest, I'm not even so certain that landlords are then going to be flipping their house and selling it once these tenants are out. I mean, again, keep it. Like refi it, money's cheap, maybe they've already done that during this to like pull some cash out to keep them afloat. I guess the whole thing is just very interesting to me that people are thinking that once they're able to kick these tenants out, that they're then going to sell. Because to be quite honest, we've seen lots of single family homes and even multifamily homes go on the market where people have to assume these renters. I've seen multiple situations too where the buyers are even paying these tenants to move out, tens of thousands of dollars to get them out so that they can move in. Or again, if it's like an in-law, and again, we're seeing a lot of people coming in from the city, like moving into these waterfronts, and some of them have in-laws. Again, they're paying people to get out. So again, the whole crisis thing clearly has been a headliner, because I feel like a lot of investors, and again, even if they're just onesies and twosies, are figuring out ways to like get around this and to keep these properties. And I don't see, in my mind, any reason or intent of them to then sell once these tenants are able to be evicted, if they ever are.
The real sad story, the real crime, the real criminal, case in all of this, in my opinion, is the fact that there is $45 billion of taxpayer money that the government has given out to the states for rental assistance, and less than 10% of that money has been allocated to landlords and tenants that actually truly need the money. The states are sitting on this federal money, which is not their money. It is taxpayers' money. This is stolen money that is just sitting there, not being used for its purpose. That should be the headline.
Right.
Of course, nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about an eviction crisis. Well, that is not happening.
Yeah. Right. I agree. I mean, because there is help. There is certainly help. But
it's very difficult and almost impossible for tenants to get that help. I'll do a quick Google of how much has been, as of about a month ago, it was less than 10%. It was down at around 6%. Has actually been used, has been distributed. How much rental assistance has been distributed? This is showing me just Florida. I want the whole state. Oh boy, that's
Wait,
gonna
you
be a
mean
tough
the whole
one.
country? You want
I want the whole country. Yeah, I don't want Florida. Billions in government aid is available. CBS News. Here's how to get it 2 weeks ago. Maybe this will tell. Only 10 million. And this says. That's a different state too. All right, so 46 billion. What did I say? 45 billion.
Yeah, I mean,
right, so
it does say in here.
This is CBS News. It
says 45 billion in this article.
And I'm looking at CBS News. It says 46 billion. So we're pretty close. And the emergency federally specially awarded for the purpose of, rental assistance. Barely 10% has been used. This is according to CBS News as of 2 weeks ago. So barely 10%. So it's now just hit about 10%. The money is not getting out fast enough. And so why would we not get the money to the people that need it and then lift this eviction ban? Give them the money that's been allocated. Okay, you took $46 billion from taxpayers. Give it to the people that actually need it. Maybe they can't prove who needs it. Maybe nobody needs it. Maybe that's the whole point here. Nobody needs the money. Maybe that's why it's sitting there. This is unbelievable. All right, so my opinion would lie with Andrew, who wrote the article, very long article, like Nicole said, which we'll link up, that we are not going through an eviction crisis. There will be pent-up evictions, no question about that. There is also a need for rental housing, as well as, if homes hit the market for buyers. So it's not going to create some type of inventory glut. People that are thinking an eviction crisis is going to equal a deal for them. To Nicole's point, if I own the property, a rental property, and I need to evict somebody once I get them out, I'm just happy that I can go get, a new tenant, a qualified tenant, and start making my return on my investment. Right. I do feel bad for the property owners that are never going to recoup this money, because you can't get blood out of a stone. You can take them to court, but of course, good luck with that.
Well, that's also the bottom line that they're talking about here too, is that evictions are so expensive. So it's like, do you continue, to sort of dig yourself a deeper hole, or again, do you just ask them to leave? Maybe just give them the money to leave, or again, do you work it out?
There's a Fox Business article I just saw the other day, and I'll just read it off really quick before we move on to the next racket. Rent payments are higher than mortgages in these cities. They've got 10 cities listed out. Memphis, Tennessee, Miami. So that means in Miami, rent is higher than buying. So it's still a deal in a market that is accelerating so much in Miami to buy than it is to rent. Typical rent is $22.49 in Miami, where the monthly mortgage is $17.27, a difference of over $500 in Miami. Atlanta is one of these cities. Birmingham, Alabama, Tampa, Indianapolis, Orlando, Charlotte, Oklahoma City, and Detroit, all 10 of those cities, it is higher to rent. Rent payments are higher, that is, than to obtain a mortgage.
That doesn't surprise me. That surprise you? That surprises you? It doesn't surprise me.
No, but it also, and I know we're getting way off topic here, it speaks to why, these prices have gone up on buying real estate. It's why BlackRock is buying it at the top of the market. These are the new numbers, folks. The market, the values of these homes are not going to fall off a cliff. If you're waiting for that, you're going to miss your opportunity to be invested in real estate. All right, racket number 2. From an agent broker perspective, will serving on a condo board or HOA help your business? Okay, another Inman article, which we will link up. An agent is wondering if joining a condo or homeowners association board will help her in her real estate career. What advice should we give her, Nicole? We'll start with you. What advice would you give her? Yeah.
I think it's a double-edged sword, and it's funny because I was asking you before, because you're in an HOA, and are you on the board?
I have 2 HOAs.
Yep.
One in Connecticut, one in Florida. Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I definitely think that this is probably this isn't immediately going to be helping your business in my mind, unless you're talking about a board or an association that has such huge turnover where you could potentially, what are you trying to gain out of this? The listings, or you're hoping buyers come to you? I totally get that. Again, in my mind, this is not, you're not getting into this as a business grower, in my opinion. I think you're getting involved in it to get involved in your association, and if you get some sales out of it, I think that's the perk. But I guess it could also be counterintuitive too. I'm sure you're a dream to the people at the board in your HOA, right? You're lovely and nice, and
I love HOA living. Love it. Love HOA living. Love that I don't have to make every single decision. That I don't have to coordinate every single blade of grass being cut. Love that. And I choose to be in 2 HOAs for a reason. Now, one of my Connecticut HOA is a total of 16 homeowners. Florida is over 400 homeowners in that HOA. When you're an agent thinking about being on the board of an HOA association, is it going to help or hurt my business? Okay. If you're in a small HOA like 16, it's going to have no impact because the turnover on 16 units is very small. But if you're
unless you rub them the wrong way, it could actually,
or maybe it could hurt your business because maybe you get better referrals. Now, if you're, and we can get into what you're talking about there. If you're in a HOA that has 400 units or 1,000, or it's a high rise in New York City and you want to dominate the building, you want to dominate the community, having that as your farm, different than being on the board. I get that. Different than being really active in the HOA. But if you want to farm that area that you live in, that's a really good idea. We've talked about that a bunch. Obviously, if you listen to the show, you understand that. That's a good thing. Now, being on the HOA, if you're going to be effective in your role on the board, you're going to have to take a stance on issues that not everybody is going to agree with. Okay. You get these debates in these HOAs. I want to invest in, a new driveway or whatever, right? You get all these.
Or we're hanging new light fixtures. Or, who we're going to hire for a vendor, these kind of things. Yeah. And, you could have situations where half the people are on one side of the debate and half the conversation, and half the people are on the other side. So if you're going to be effective in your role, you're going to have to take a side, much like politics, right? And so those people on your side are really going to support you and they're going to be for you. The people you're opposing are not going to be for you. Now, the best way to get business on a board, being on an HOA, is to be Switzerland. Is to do absolutely nothing. To be like most politicians, where you do nothing, you disturb nobody, you just sit there and collect your check, so to speak. Even though you're not getting a check to be on the board, you're just checking the box. You're
completely riding the fence on every single issue. You're seeing both sides. If your goal on the board is not to improve the community or hold the value in the community, because you got to take a stance to do that. If your goal is to get business, you got to ride the fence. Potentially,
but I think also as an agent, you could be a valuable resource and explain to them, what do these decisions have for the value in the future. So,
and that's the best way to do it.
I think that's the only way that you can do it. It's a lot less about aesthetic and how it's going to make you feel. I think it's really your value will be like, how are these decisions going to impact the future of value?
Here's a very small example. In my Connecticut HOA, there's 16 homeowners, right? So,
and they've been there forever. I mean, how many?
And a lot of them have been there. A lot of them have been there forever. So, and there's a few new. But there's a discussion that just recently happened about light fixtures. Okay, immediately just off of intuition
but was there even a discussion? Because I all I heard was that, Nicole, they're putting new fixtures up. Do you like them? So they were already being put up.
There was some discussion around it, but ultimately, when you have a small HOA like that, you're not bringing in a designer, right? These are just homeowners making decisions based off of what they like. So we're talking about feelings, right? And we know where feelings are going to get you.
Well, I'll be honest, though. I'm not so certain that they did. I'm pretty certain that they picked the light fixture that was the most inexpensive.
That could be it, too. But they picked a particular style based off of what somebody liked, right?
Clearly.
Not based off of just me, like, knowing the market. Like, for, Nicole, we're at 300, and this is a total humble brag. Our team is at 392 units for the year. Okay, so we've got a little bit more data, and that's in that same market. We've got a little bit more data than these homeowners on what buyers like, what the trends are happening right now that increase value. And my comment was just like, hey, that's and how you get business is by trying to say, in our experience, this percentage of buyers would lean more towards this light fixture as opposed to like what I'm that's an ugly light fixture.
Well, you could approach it very differently, but and we just talked about it last week, though. I mean, what was it was like the top 5 or top 10 things to help sell your house even in an up market. And again, curb appeal is on that top list.
It's so big.
If someone pulls in there and feels like they're visiting their, and no offense to grandma, but like they're visiting grandma, like are they gonna want to throw the cash at that?
Honestly, those units that we're talking about, if they just had more curb appeal, I'm in my mind they'd be worth $200,000 more than what they sell for.
Well, based on your location, I mean, you could,
because it's all about location and square footage. I mean,
your size is big.
So, anyways, I don't want to get totally off topic here. I can see it helping you if you're taking an advisor role on the board.
Yes,
I don't want to make the decisions. I'm here to be a consultant based off of the data that I have access to, that I can present to the board, but I don't want to be here to make decisions, because I want to continue to use these relationships as an influence in my farm to get more business.
Right. But in your situation, if you're trying to increase your property value, maybe it is worth hopping on there, but I don't think that way is going to necessarily help your business unless there's enough people there long enough to actually see the return on that investment. Then you are going to be like the baby Jesus of the HOA.
Baby Jesus.
Yeah, they're gonna bow to you and bring you gifts.
Wow, I haven't had any gifts.
No, I'm certain that you haven't had any gifts.
So that one HOA I've gotten a little bit involved in, just because there are some. It's an older community. It was built in '84, so it's time to make some decisions there. Where the Florida one is newer, it runs perfectly. I don't need to even, and that's where I like and prefer to be a member of an HOA, is that I don't have to think about the decisions being made. Like, I know that
the
every
sprinklers
single
are going to go off, and the grass is going to be mowed at the same time
every week.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you're throwing a party right after.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So your take is the same advisor role here.
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yes. Yeah.
And we'll link up that article. You can get their the perspective of this article. But we're moving on. Marketeer of the week, going back to what I would consider the greatest decade of all time, the 1990s. MTV era, MTV Cribs.
Yep.
Once the king of real estate TV is making its return to cable. Or is MTV still on cable?
It is still.
Okay.
But it's interesting here. It says in 2001, though. I mean, this all happened in the early 2000s.
Oh, really?
2000s. Yes.
I just think MTV and I think 90s. Okay.
Of course. No,
in 2001, aired a shockingly hilarious raw episode. Okay, so you're there you go. All right. My bad. But
well,
MTV
but again, of
was
course,
built in the 90s.
Well, 100%. And obviously they were highlighting all of the celebrities from the 90s because it was only 2001. But
So the first one is the one I always think about, and maybe Sam, who's cutting up this particular real word for us. Welcome back, Sam, to the real word here for a cameo. Maybe he can just put a little clip of this first ever episode, which is the one I always think of, the Red Man episode, which is just awesome. It is so awesome because it's not like a fancy walkthrough. He's just literally joking around, and it's
like
hilarious.
Pulling stuff out of his freezer, and yeah,
do a little Red Man clip there. So he walks up on a mattress with no sheets before he shows the camera what he calls Exhibit A, seemingly a pile of junk on the floor beneath a window that is covered with what looks like a broken second-hand office blind. So great stuff. Now, do you think this will be successful coming back? Do you think Cribs Part 2 is going to be must-watch TV?
Of course. I mean, I think if, again, everyone right now, what do they love? They love the experience. I mean, you're going to be welcomed into these celebrities' homes. I mean, some are probably, I'm certain, quite lavish. But, I mean, it would be fun to throw a few Redmen in there where it's, maybe they're still at the beginning of their career, still haven't quite, made it there. But I don't see why it wouldn't. If anything, I'll be watching. So that makes for good TV.
With the explosion of real estate TV, HGTV, Bravo with $1 million listings, I agree. I think this is going to take off. This is great marketing. If like the smart luxury brokers can get involved somehow to maybe be a part of it, a small part of it. But ultimately, people want to see celebrity homeowners, their homes, inside their home. And what I always enjoyed was, like, for whatever weird reason, I even enjoy this, and I think the vast majority of people enjoy, like, what is in your fridge? What do you have in your fridge? Open that thing up. Show me what you got in there. What's in your pantry? What type of items do you have in the house? Even more so, I think, than the house itself.
Well, I guess that makes them human, right?
Yeah.
Whatever sort of makes them real.
All right, so this is coming out this month. Actually, the first episode aired August 11th. This is obviously a relaunch, and you had an Olympian, Ryan Locke. You know Ryan?
Yes. You don't. Yeah, wasn't he like he got into big trouble at one of the last Olympics? Yeah, he was a swimmer. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go, Ryan. Don't know him. Never heard of him.
Not that. I mean, I'm definitely not dying to see that episode. I have to say.
I'd like to see
They'll
Red Man.
Work their way up.
They should have started with Red Man again, his new crib.
Oh, do like an update? Like where is he now?
Where is he now?
Poor guy. Do we even know where he is now?
He's probably somewhere fabulous. Kathy Griffin, and then you've got Martha Stewart. Oh wow, her home's got to be fantastic. Martha Stewart. I've got to see that. I got to look that up on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, which one? I guess it's also like which one are we going to see?
Yeah, I mean the kitchen and that. I want to see what's in her pantry, what's in her fridge.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
she'd put us all to shame. I don't want to see anything in her pantry.
I love it. All right, so MTV Cribs is back. You gonna start doing MTV Cribs style videos? Are you doing one of those today, Nicole? Are you doing an?
It already happened.
It already happened. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sam took care of that already for me this morning.
Love it. So there you go. Love to hear from you in the comments in your particular state about the eviction ban. Is there a ban? Do you feel like there's going to be a tsunami of evictions coming in your particular state? And love to hear any other comments that you have. And if you found value in this podcast, please consider subscribing. That's a wrap. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Keep it real.